Well, you guys have heard my complaints in multiple videos, and now the season's over, it's time to state those complaints of this show. Hey guys, Cameron for the season of School of Rock. Now that the season has just ended, I figured I would review season 1. And as you guys know, I have said a lot about this show. I've said a lot of things I've had to say about it. And especially if you watch my School of Rock, the musical review, if you can watch that review, I don't know if it's still there, but if you can watch my soundtrack review of that, you know that I prefer that so much more than this version. And let me just say, going into this, you guys know, I was not fond of the first episode. I mean, I thought it was a good setup to the show, but I still thought, okay, the show had a long way to go before it could be as good as the original, movie was. And please ignore the washing machine, guys. It's just really louder now. I don't know why. It just gets really loud. So please try to ignore that. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but please try to ignore the washing machine. But basically, back to this show, like I said, if you guys want to see my review of the first episode, definitely check it out. We're going to go from the first episode and talk about everything that happened, which really there's not a lot to talk about. And, basically, I guess I'll start off with the things that worked really well in the show, and then the things that didn't work. Basically, the second episode focuses on Tamika and Summer, and basically how Summer is not able to sing, which is one of the only things that the show remembered from the original movie, and that's something I definitely really love, is that she doesn't know how to sing. Tamika is trying to teach her how to sing, and in the middle of it, Tamika has an incredible voice. She can sing really well, and, I mean, that's not a surprise. Tamika could sing really well in the movie, but she's good, but she's not anywhere near as good as Tamika was in the movie. Here, she just sounds like an average pop singer. Like, she doesn't sound that amazing, and the way they make her sound like she's this amazing revelation is really annoying, because mainly we know how great Tamika was in the original movie and in the Broadway show, and here she's just average at best, really. I mean, Brianna Yeti, she can sing, definitely. She definitely can sing. It's just the songs that they give her are really standard pop songs, and there's really not much else to it. And first of all, the show is called School of Rock, and most of the songs are singer pop songs. But basically, long story short, Mr. Finn hears her sing, decides to make her lead singer of the band, and now she's the bass player and lead singer of the band. And that's one of the biggest major developments we get. So basically, that's how they form the band. Eventually, basically they form the band and everything. That's how it ends up going, and from there, that's when they start to really form the band. Summer, meanwhile, though, she's playing tambourine, and probably in the best episode of this entire show, we get episode 4, which is an incredible episode where Summer basically realizes, that she doesn't just want to play tambourine. She feels like she's not a part of this band. Everyone else is playing their heart instruments and, playing their hearts out, and she feels like she's background. She feels like she doesn't matter, and she wants to start coming up with original songs for the band. And I was like, okay, this is how we're going to get School of Rock, because we knew, this show is called School of Rock. You can't have School of Rock without the song School of Rock. So I was like, okay, this is how we're going to get it. We don't get it, but it's still a great episode, mainly because of Jade Pettyjohn. Now, let me just talk about my love for Jade Pettyjohn right now, because if you guys know, I said in the first episode of the show, I don't like this version of Summer. I thought that they were going to portray her as a dumb blonde, but they didn't at all. I actually fell in love with her very quickly. And not the character, just her as an actress. I fell in love with her acting very quickly. She is the best thing about this show. Everything that she represents is what I want the show to be. She knows her character. She's funny. She's snarky. She's actually quite bossy at times. And she's everything you'd want Summer to be. And even though she's not exactly like Miranda Cosgrove, that's perfectly fine for me, because I think overall she did a great job, and she's an incredible actress, and she really has some great emotional moments in this 4th episode. That's really when I started to see her shine, and basically, she does end up coming up with the original song for the band. We never hear it again, which kind of pisses me off, because it's an amazing song, and we never really hear it again, and basically, we see that the whole song was pointless, which kind of sucks, but Jade Pettyjohn, going back to her, very quickly, I realized, I really loved her crush on Freddie. I thought that really carried the show really well. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch. And I liked her friendship with Tamika. That's definitely something that the show does really well, is setting up this friendship between Tamika and Summer. That's something I definitely really loved. And you see these two, they have really good friendship chemistry. You can see why these two be really good friends. I think it's something the show set up really well, and that's something that I really loved about the show. And as far as a crush on Freddie goes, it's a nice little innocent crush, and yes, it pretty much is just his looks and everything, and but every time that it seems like, she's gonna say something about him or something about him that she likes, it's actually really funny, and she does a good job with not making it too over the top. I like the way it's done. It's actually really cute, and I think definitely it's one of the high points of the show, and that's definitely something that I really loved. And basically, from that point, every other episode is pretty much a one-off. We eventually get the name of the band in one of the stupidest episodes of the show. I'll get to them when we get to the negatives, because I want to go positives and then go to the negatives. But basically, from there, every episode is a one-off. I'm going to talk about the things. So from here, that's basically everything that happened until we get to the finale, which I will talk about the finale. But I want to talk about what did work and what didn't work on the show, what I thought worked really well, what never worked at all, because definitely there are a lot of things that worked and a lot of things that didn't work. And we're going to talk about those things that worked and didn't work right now. So like I said, I already praised Jade Pennejon. I think she's an incredible actress, and she really did a great job. And the reason I think she's so good is because everyone else in the show isn't nearly as good as her. Brianna Yeti is supposed to be our main character, and I never felt like she was. She's billed as the first character in the show, but I don't see her as a main character. So many episodes didn't focus on her that I never really saw her as a main character. You know how Girl Meets World, every episode focuses on Riley in some way, even though they might not focus directly on Riley. Riley's still a major part of it. That's not how it is with Tamika. Tamika is kind of, she's meant to be a main character, then she's not a main character, and that's something that the show really doesn't do yet, and I really did not, enjoy that. I really did not like the way that the show, showed what was going, I did not like the way that the show basically didn't know, who the main character really was, because there are a lot of characters here. Zach got some really good stuff. Let me just say that. Zach got some really good stuff, but the guys on the show are seriously lacking. Really, the guy talent is really not there. A lot of the main characters, the guys, that's a big problem with this show. Zach, like I said, he had some really good stuff, and he definitely showed he could act really well, especially in an episode where we find out that his dad is really a hard ass when it comes to really good grades, and he wants Zach to do really well, and, we've seen that from the movie. That's something else they got really well, seeing how hard, Zach's father really was on him, and how he really wants him to do well, and how he even almost transfers Zach out of the class because he just, really wants to see him push really, really well, and he wants Zach to have this future, and I like that Zach actually tells him that he doesn't want to be a businessman. That's not what he wants to be. He wants to be playing guitar. That's what he wants to do, and his dad does accept him for it. It's a really nice scene. I like the way that was done. That actor was really good, and he shines really well in those emotional moments. He definitely does a very good job with them. Freddie, on the other hand, is pretty plain. He is your plain, good-looking, basically guy who's there to make all the girls swoon on the show. He's honestly not that good of an actor. I really don't think the guy who played Freddie was ever that great, but it's mainly because we never really got an episode of just about Freddie. We kind of did, but it really wasn't anything that big. It was more of a filler episode at him going to this party and then not ditching his friends. I thought that was well done, but he as a character really was lacking, and he really didn't work. However, the main character that just pissed me off, and I could not stand on this show, and anytime he spoke, I was not a fan of him, is Lawrence. Holy shit, Lawrence. Talk about a character change, really. They really went, from this Asian kid who is supposed to be a bit weird and just a bit eccentric to this really annoying kid who clearly is trying to be like Farkle on Girl Meets World, and it's not at all like that. This is Farkle minus all the interesting things about him, because literally Lawrence is just a nerdy kid. That's all he is. He's a nerdy kid. You don't really know why anyone would really be friends with him. He says all these awkward lines. Nothing's really funny. The only time I liked him was an episode where he had a crush on this girl and he sang a song to her. That actually was a very sweet scene. Other than that, I never found a single one of his lines funny. I always found him to be very forced, and I get that he's young, so I don't want to be too hard on the actor. I think it's more the script that they gave him. The script they gave him is terrible, and he really does not do a good job reciting it. Maybe as the seasons go on, he's getting more comfortable, but this season, he really was bad. I did not like Lawrence, and he really was the thing that really annoyed me. And that core group overall, I think they work well together, but the biggest problem with the show show is actually not Lawrence. The biggest problem with the show is what this show is lacking. And this show is seriously lacking Mr. Finn. I mean, Mr. Finn, he's supposed to be the main part of the show. He's supposed to be the thing that brings this band together. And he's not really. He's really just there at first to be a good teacher. And he does give them some good, music lessons, but also gives them some good life lessons. And I really did like that. And I like how he did try to be a friend of them. But you never really believe it, because this guy's kind of just a goofball, and he's there to make jokes, and he's there to do really silly things, and he's there to be an idiot, and that's not at all who Dewey Finn was. Dewey Finn was not an idiot. Dewey Finn was a bit immature, and he was a bit, he wasn't really mature, and he wasn't exactly an adult. He was a bit of a man-child, but he wasn't an idiot, and this Dewey Finn really is an idiot, and the fact that he's called Mr. Finn, that kind of pisses me off the way that that's done, and we really never got into his character. All we know is that he lives with his mother, he was rejected from this band, and that he, I guess, owns, some sort of, food truck business or some shit before this, and he was in a band and everything. He knows a bunch of celebrities. That's really all we get with his character, and it's not nearly enough. I would have wanted to see more of his background, more of his character. I mean, this is the adult character on the show. This is the one that everyone looks up to, and I want to find out more about his character. This is what we watch the show for, and as good as his character is, and as good as Tony, the guy that plays him, I can't think of his name right now, but as good as he is on the show, he really is lacking. He's very funny, I will definitely say. Out of all the characters, he is the one that made me constantly laugh, and everything he said, I thought was quite funny. He definitely does a very good job of that. He has great comedic timing. The problem is that he's just there for that. The Dewey Finn in School of Rock, yes, he was very funny, but he also really cared about these kids, and you saw that, and you really believe that he was a good teacher, and what he was doing was a good thing. And not that you don't believe that this guy is, it's just they never really show it that way. They show it more as this guy is goofing off, and he never really got that moment where he gets to be the singer, and you don't really know why he was in a band. I mean, yeah, he's a good guitar player, but he never got a solo, and it really was bizarre that out of all the characters, Mr. Finn got the least focus, and it just feels weird that, School of Rock, he's the one that got the least focus. I get what the show was trying to do, have, the show mainly be about the kids, but it really felt sloppy, because there were times we go with the kids, and then there were episodes where we did focus on Mr. Finn, and it just didn't really work in the way the show wanted to. I didn't really think the show handled it nearly as well as it should have, and that was something that I really did not like. Another big complaint with the show, and this is something that might just be a minor complaint, but, so we know that obviously the band is composed of these 5, but what about the other kids? The rest of the class, what the hell are they supposed to do? I mean, the movie and the Broadway show, they give them all specific jobs, like band manager, you're the stylist, you're the one that does all the tech stuff, and there's none of that here. I mean, the show is completely incompetent of not focusing just on these 5, because that's all they do. They focus on these 5, and they don't want to deviate away from them. We don't want to see what the rest of the class is doing, apparently, which I care about, honestly. I want to see what this class is doing, because that's what School of Rock is. It's supposed to be that class, not just these 5. Why are we only focusing on these 5? What makes these 5 so great? I really don't see what makes these 5 stick out. I mean, yes, they can play instruments, but what about the rest of the class? What are they supposed to do? Just twiddle their thumbs and watch? I mean, that's really unfair, and it gives us kind of this really bad message, honestly, that's what you're meant to do. If you're in a band, don't let anybody else be in it, kind of like that. It just felt really weird that they never acknowledged the rest of the class. I mean, the rest of the class was there, but honestly, they felt like props. They really did, and you should never do that. Your background cast should never feel like props. That's something that Girl Meets World learned very well, is that in the first season, no one really talked unless they were a main character, and now they have a lot of characters talk that are main characters, because they realize that they're not just props. They are class, kids in a class, and, it's not just going to be Tamika, Summer, Lauren, Zach, and Freddie that talk. The other kids are going to talk, and we never really saw it. I don't think a single line came out of a single kid in the class that wasn't one of the main characters, and it just felt very weird. I get that there are main characters, but I just want a little more focus there, and that also felt very weird. I also think this show is really lacking in the character of Principal Mullins. They don't really understand Principal Mullins at all. Principal Mullins is literally just an angry principal. Now let's think about the movie Principal Mullins. In the movie, Principal Mullins, yes, she was a hard ass, and yes, she was very hard on her students, but it's also because she thinks that way of life, that carefree, fun way of life, is bad, and how she got drunk, and how she just doesn't have that part of her anymore. That rock side of her is gone, and then Mr. Finn takes her out. She starts to get that back, and she starts to enjoy it more, and we get none of that here. She's literally just portrayed as a really strict principal, and there's nothing really else to her. She's very plain, she's boring, honestly, and I really was disappointed, because Principal Mullins is supposed to be one of the funniest parts of this show, and she's not at all. I mean, the actress that plays her is not bad. I think she's okay. She definitely is, Sierra Boggess, I definitely say, is a lot better than her. As bad as I said Sierra Boggess was, I think she definitely was better than her. Jamie Williamson, though, she does a good job with what she has, but she just doesn't do much of anything here, and I just really wasn't a fan of her. I didn't really think she handled this role that well at all, and really, they just didn't really do much of Principal Mullins. I wanted to see them do more with her, and they really didn't do much of anything. They focused way too much, I think, on characters that are just guest stars, like Kendall Schmidt, for example. Kendall Schmidt comes back in this, after Big Time Rush. He comes back, and he is a member of the rival band that tries to steal Zach away, and you just don't really care about his character. He is probably the most stereotypical villain you could think of. He's there to plot, he's there to ruin the band, he's there to ruin their name, and he's just really cartoony, and they don't really like his character, and Kendall Schmidt deserves a lot better than this. He's a very good actor. If you guys seen Big Time Rush, you can see that he can handle dramatic acting, and that show had dramatic moments. This show kind of seems like it's afraid to do that, and that's something I really didn't like, and that's something else I'll say. This show really isn't all that funny. I never really found this show to be that funny, unfortunately. I think some jokes really did work, but a lot of episodes it felt very flat, and especially when the show tried to be just a comedy show, it really didn't work in the way it wanted to, and for me, that really ruined a lot of the show. The other problem I have with this show, and this should be this should be something that is just really easy to fix. I mean, really, this should not be an issue at all, but the music to this show, look, this show is called School of Rock, and they probably do the least amount of rock songs in this show. I mean, I heard "We're Not Gonna Take It." I heard a song by, I believe, The Who, but other than that, I didn't hear a single rock song in this show, and it's all pop songs done as rock, and yes, you can do that, but it's supposed to be rock songs, and he's teaching them about rock songs, and there's an episode where Tamika has horrible bass face, terrible episode, let me just say, terrible plot. She has terrible bass face, and the only way to correct that is to basically imitate Demi Lovato. I don't know what this show was thinking. I don't know why this show is saying imitating Demi Lovato is apparently punk and somehow has to do with rock, but the movie, at least, one of the best things about the movie is that it does introduce these kids to older rock stars, and yes, he does talk about them, but there's a difference between referencing them and actually showing and doing those rock songs, and, basically emulating those rock stars, which these kids never do. They never have a conversation about these rock stars. It just feels very bizarre that your show is called School of Rock, and you barely do that, and that's something else they do. They barely focus on them going to the Battle of the Bands. Most of the episodes, like I said, are one-offs, and because of that, the Battle of the Bands always feels like an afterthought. It should never feel like an afterthought. The way they come up with the School of Rock is the dumbest thing I have seen. I mean, it's probably the worst episode the show has done, A Band with No Name, and it's absolutely horrible, where they have to play at some kid's birthday party, and basically, they want to do this song, they do this song that the princess sings there. They do a rock version of it, and they realize that they're a band, and they play rock, and they're a school, so they're called the School of Rock. It's really dumb. I hate the way that was done, and yes, there's the episode where Summer becomes the manager, but again, she doesn't really do much. I mean, honestly, she's the band manager. She doesn't do much of anything till, the last two episodes. That's really when she starts to do stuff, and really, unfortunately, again, was very underutilized. It seemed like anything important in the show, this show did not focus on, because it wanted to focus more on jokes and how funny these kids can be, and giving these kids really ridiculous scenarios that just aren't realistic. I mean, the penultimate episode of your show should not be about Lawrence having a crush on this girl and then have a subplot of the kids possibly joining a prehistoric band. It just should not be that. We should have seen a lot more preparation for Battle of the Bands. We didn't see that, and that's something that really pissed me off about this season, that the show never seemed focused on what it should be, and it always seemed like it wanted to focus more on comedy, and it really does show that they don't really understand School of Rock in the way they should, and that's something that really severely ruined a big part of this show. But with all that said, guys, let's just get to the finale of this, because I really do want to talk about it, because there were some things that worked here and a lot of things that did not work. I mean, the idea of them having the worst day and going through all these different situations, that's typical sitcom formula. I mean, that works really well, and I think some of them worked really well here. Like, the idea of them having to cover, finally they bring back the fact that they're a secret band and that they could get found out by the school and it could get really bad. They obviously, they're going to Battle of the Bands, and they literally blow up what their song is going to be right into Kendall Schmidt's character's face, because he's in this night blizzard, I think his name was, the name of the band was, and they literally say it right to his face. Why you do that, I have no idea. I mean, I get that Mr. Finn obviously is an idiot, but it's really dumb that all the characters do that. And basically, they're about to go to the Battle of the Bands. They have this song ready. Tamika's voice is going clearly, and they're going to Battle of the Bands. They're going on their way to the van and everything. They end up having to change their clothes. They change into PJs because they ran through the sprinklers, which is really weird. And then Night Blizzard ends up stealing their song, basically, which I thought was a well-done scene, but so predictable as well. Just the second I saw Kendall Schmidt, I'm like, he's gonna steal their song. That's what's gonna happen. So then I was getting really excited, guys, because I thought, okay, the best thing the show could have done is that, of course, the show is called School of Rock. But like you guys have seen in this entire review, this is nothing like School of Rock. This is not the School of Rock movie. The best thing the show could have done is just fix itself entirely and actually play the School of Rock song. The School of Rock song that Dewey, the one that Zach writes and that, Dewey sings and everyone sings it with him, just that incredible epic number. That would have just, given me all the, forgiven basically everything, reprieve the show entirely of all of the, wrongs it's committed pretty much. And they do the exact opposite of what they should have done. Basically, Zach has this ringtone on, and this is probably the most half-assed, plot twist they could have done. Zach, throughout the episode, has a ringtone on his phone. It's Shut Up and Dance, and constantly people are calling him. Basically, because their song is stolen, Summer decides that they should do Shut Up and Dance as a rock version, because totally is what they should do. I mean, yeah, it's Battle of the Bands, and they're gonna do a cover of a song, when clearly all the other bands did their own original material. They're gonna do an original song. They're not gonna do an original song. I thought they were gonna do Summer's song. Okay, I thought, alright, they're gonna do Summer's song. That's not what they do. They decided to do Zach's Shut Up and Dance, and they learn in 20 minutes. Basically, we see Clark. This kid is about to expose them to Principal Mullins, but basically they end up getting locked on the roof because they practice on the roof, and basically the person that's managing the Battle of the Bands hears them. They win the Battle of the Bands, which I thought was really dumb. The way this should have ended should not have all been them winning the Battle of the Bands. It should have ended with Kendall Schmidt's band winning, and them actually being victorious, coming up with a song in like 20 minutes, people coming out to see them, but not actually winning. It just would have been a lot more of a triumph, and would have been a lot more satisfying of an ending to not actually have them win. They don't win in the movie because, as Jack Black says, it's not about winning, it's about putting on a kick-ass show, and that's something that this show did not understand. They didn't say that. Mr. Finn made a big deal of, we're gonna sound better, we are more professional, that kind of thing. Those words never came out of his mouth, obviously, because it's Nickelodeon, that's also why, but also because of the fact that the show didn't get the message right. The message is supposed to be that the music matters, not the win. The music is what matters, and here it seemed like the win really did matter, that they really did need the win, and yes, I get that they want the win, but where do we go from here, really? I don't understand where the show goes from here. It doesn't really give us a direction of where we're heading in Season 2. Basically, he now has this band. What is the point now? I don't really know what they're gonna do, obviously. I don't really know where they're heading in Season 2. We did get that nice little moment between Summer and Freddie. I would have wanted them to kiss. They did not kiss, unfortunately. I kind of wanted that to happen, but it didn't happen. Overall, I think a good ending, not a great ending, definitely not a great ending, especially the ending of the episode really pissed me off, the fact they actually won. I didn't want them to win. I would have wanted them to actually not succeed. I would have wanted to see them succeed mentally, but not actually physically win. I would have wanted to see people see them perform and then become successful, but not actually, see them win, because you don't win everything. You don't win them all, and you don't, most bands, they don't just win after learning a song for 20 minutes. It's just not realistic. And I get that the show is not at all realistic. I totally understand that, but it just doesn't really work, and that's something that really pissed me off, and that's basically how the season ends. So overall, guys, there are a lot of problems with School of Rock, and let me just say, this is not a bad show. It's just it's a show full of missed opportunities, and it could be a much better show. I think if these characters, we maybe not dumb them down, that's not the word, but maybe not focus so much on their comedic abilities and actually see their personal lives, like what we did with Zach or what we did with Summer, then this show could be really good. And I think if we focus less on the characters' lives and focus more on the actual battle of the bands and what they're going through, then the show could be a lot better. And that's something that I really think the show is lacking. So overall, I really did enjoy the season. I definitely am going to say that. I don't think this was a bad season. I enjoyed watching it. I think it was very much underutilized. Next season, they have 13 episodes. They got renewed for a second season, which I'm honestly happy they did, because I do want to see them improve on the show, but it's nowhere near as good as Girl Meets World, definitely, and it's definitely nowhere near as good as the movie or the Broadway show. But either way, I am still going to give School of Rock Season 1 a 3 out of 5 or a C+. Unfortunately, the show just never, I think, really found its groove. It never realized really what was working. A lot of things just felt very misplaced. It never felt like the show understood what it was actually based off of, and unfortunately, it's nowhere near as entertaining as the movie or the Broadway show. I would recommend it. I think if you're a fan of the movie, definitely don't watch this. I mean, I had my dad watch it and he turned it off. He said it was trash, because he said it was really cheesy or whatever, and he didn't want to watch it. Which, yes, this show is very cheesy, but the reason I continue to watch is, one, because of Jade Penningham, because she's a great actress. She deserves to be in much better things than this because she's so good, but also because of the fact that I think this show has a lot of potential, and I think right now they don't realize the potential that they do have, and hopefully as the show goes on, they will realize that potential in Season 2. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this season. Love to your thoughts. And I know a lot of people didn't watch this show. I think a lot of people actually stopped watching it after a couple episodes. But let me know what you guys thought of this show. What do you think this show is going to improve on Season 2? Where are we heading in Season 2? I have no idea. This show does not give me any answers where we're heading in Season 2. I kind of want to see the band exposed. Nothing really happened. There was nothing reminiscent of a cliffhanger. What are the problems of the show for you? How can the show fix those problems? I really love to talk about that. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Outlander. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.